A big key in this game is not allowing the enemy team's heroes to express themselves in the way that they want to be expressed. What's going on, YouTube? My name is Skyfox, and today we're going to have a conversation about how to become a master strategist, right? And when you should play a hero versus when you shouldn't play them, and how to decide which strategist is needed for your current situation, right? So I started playing in season 1. Since then, I have had multiple heroes in the top 500. I've hit Celestial. I generally am around the Celestial to Grandmaster rank, right? I generally hit that every season. I have several blue badges. I spent a lot of time on Strategist. I think I have definitely over 1,000 hours on this game. Let's get into it. So the first thing I want to say is that you are not a healer and you are not a support. You are a strategist. What that means is it's up to you to look and see what the composition of the enemy team is and what their win condition is. And then you adapt to which strategist is going to be the optimal choice against whatever their win condition is. What is their win condition? Which strategist is going to be the best to counter their win condition? The second thing I want to say is when you're playing strategist, you need to be able to get as much value as you can out of all of your heroes' abilities. So what I mean by that is if you're on Cloak and Dagger and they have double shield tanks, how often are you going to be able to swap to Cloak to throw your Terror Cape to blind the enemies? Not that often. There's going to be very small windows, right? Especially if they're not diving you, then you're definitely not really going to be able to Terror Cape a Hela or a Namor or a Moon Knight or, you know, people who are playing behind the shield tanks, right? And it's very vital for you to be able to do that. Like, you're on this hero. We need this hero's abilities in order for us to win the match, right? Because it's not all about the ults. It's about the neutral, right? So in the neutral game, you need to be able to swap to Cloak to throw the blind, right? Because Cloak and Dagger doesn't do a lot of healing and is supplemented with the blind. It grants 28% vulnerability. They receive more damage and they also get blinded, right? You need to be able to do that. That is an essential part of the hero's abilities. Let me say this. I'm not advocating for people to be DPS strategists. I'm also trying to get people to get away from being a heal bot. This is why you could do 72,000 healing or 55,000 healing and your team still loses. Is because really your abilities were not being used in the fight, right? There was really no way for you to get any of your neutral abilities off in the fight, right? So you're just healing, and that's not what we need. Okay, you guys, so the way we're going to do this is I'm going to show you some of my gameplay, and in this match, I play 4 different strategists. So I start out on Invisible Woman. I don't really know what they have. Obviously, it's the beginning of the match. So here I die to Magic. So I immediately swap to White Fox. Why do I swap to White Fox? Because her abilities are more equipped to deal with dive, right? She is an anti-dive support. They're diving. We have a Cloak and Dagger, which is also very good against dive. And they have a Devil Dinosaur and a Penny Parker Magic Bucky. So everybody can get Terror Caped here. Cloak and Dagger is a great pick here against this comp. Everybody can get Terror Caped. She can get a lot of value out of her abilities, which is what we're looking for, right? So here we push around the corner and Gambit ults, Magic ults. As soon as Magic ults, I ult, right? And she gets no value out of her ult, right? Which is what we're looking for. My Cloak and Dagger ults, I don't know why she ulted, right? There was really no reason to ult, but hey, she ulted. Right now, Bucky ults. That would have been a good time for her to maybe throw her ult, but his ult was pretty bad because he's trying to, I guess, 1v6 the whole team, right? Magic dies to me again. I immediately teleport out, and she's dead, right? Because I'm playing an anti-dive strategist, right? With a hero, someone like Invisible Woman, like if you were playing Invisible Woman against that, you know, your orb is not really going to do anything. In order to push her, you have to have like multiple inputs. You have to press the button and press another button, whereas with White Fox, it's like you just press one button, you teleport to somebody, right? So Magic is not really doing too well here. I'm gonna get a pick on her right here, and they're gonna swap. Why? Because I'm playing. We got this back line is, you can't dive this back line, right? Cloak and Dagger and Namor and White Fox. You're not diving that. And also we have a Penny, right? So it just makes your job 15 times harder. So they swap their comp up. They have a Punisher, a Namor, right? So no more dive, which now, I mean, I'm gonna wait until I die, but now is a great time to get off a White Fox. Why is it a good time to get off a White Fox? Because I'm ulting here. My ult is gonna do virtually nothing against a Punisher ult or even a Namor ult, right? I'm just gonna get melted. I'm not gonna play White Fox into all that poke because White Fox's heals are not that high, and I'm not gonna be able to swap into melee form and go jump on the Punisher, right? Or go jump on an Namor. Like, they're sitting well far behind their tanks. They're in a Punisher, could be in a turret. Like, I'm gonna make things easy for myself. I'm gonna swap to Loki and force them to shoot my clones, right? Because while they're shooting my clones, that means they're not shooting my team, right? Also, Loki can block the Namor ult. And he's just going to be able to direct damage away from the team. And Loki has burst heals. Once we get this point, they're going to change their comp again. By far, Loki is the best strategist to play against any poke composition, minus Moon Knight, Squirrel Girl, Iron Man, and I guess maybe like Human Torch and Storm, right? But pretty much any and all other poke characters are countered by Loki. So we're not gonna get this point. Initially, when they had a Penny Parker and they were diving and they had a Devil Dinosaur, Cloak and Dagger was a great pick, but now they have a Magneto, they have an Iron Man, right? Both of those can blow up Cloak and Dagger and her ult. So now half of his abilities of the hero he's on are pretty much rendered useless. If I had to pick what two strategists would be optimal in this against this team, I would have to go with Invisible Woman, right? Invisible Woman can push the tanks back or pull them in, help create space for the tanks. She can also throw her orb at Iron Man and make him fall to the ground. That's value. That's way more value than what Cloak and Dagger can do right now. Your windows to Terra Cape, Strange and Mag are very low. You're not gonna Terra Cape Punisher sitting in the back of the turret. You're not gonna Terra Cape Iron Man in the sky, right? So Invisible Woman is a great pick here, and because of this Iron Man, I really need to get off of Loki. Also, we have a Penny on our team, and they're not diving, so Penny is also useless in this situation. But he does not want to swap, right? We asked him to swap. He does not want to swap. So the only other thing that we can do in a situation like this, and what you can do in a situation like this, is play Ultron, and hopefully somebody else on your team can play Storm or Iron Man or multiple different types of flyers, right? Because you're basically going to create a comp that is centered around Penny. They can't just shoot Penny now. They have to shoot me. They have to shoot the Storm. So we're enabling our Penny. This is not a composition that I would normally play Ultron in. Ultron is really good against all flyers minus Angela and Squirrel Girl, Black Panther. Squirrel Girl, Black Panther, and flyers are really favorable situations for Ultron. And then there are other little secret things like a situation like this where you have a penny that won't swap, where now you hopefully can get somebody else to swap to a flyer on your team, and now you have a super penny comp. And the Punisher is also very valuable here. I don't think this would work if we all aren't playing behind Penny. The other thing I think that is very valuable that I don't think people are doing is I've actually won matches where I had the Payne brothers on my team, and I was like, man, you know what? The Punisher is finna tear these dudes up. And so I'm like, I'm gonna go Ultron. Why? Because Poke counters Brawl, but Poke also counters Flyer, so they have to choose who they're going to counter. Are they going to shoot my tanks, or are they going to shoot me? And if they're not shooting at me, I'm going to shoot them, right? Same thing can also work with you have like a Spider-Man and a Black Panther, or a Spider-Man and a Magic, or you have double dive. Very annoying, but you know, you can actually win by playing Ultron. Why? Because they're going to have to play Poke in order to kill you, but you have dive on your team. So as long as those divers focus those pokers and they're not only just trying to kill, you know, their strategists, you could still win that match. So now I think it's a good time for us to talk about who our anti-brawl strategists are. And to understand who our anti-brawl strategists are, we have to understand our abilities, right? Luna is known for her high poke damage, and poke counters Brawl. So if we think about the strategists on the roster, currently we have Luna, Mantis, Rocket, and maybe even Ultron could be considered an anti-Brawl strategist. It's very similar to what I was saying earlier about Cloak and Dagger, right? They have double shield tanks. How often are you really going to be able to poke them or freeze them or put them to sleep? Not that often, right? So a big key in this game is not allowing the enemy team's heroes to express themselves in the way that they want to be expressed. What do I mean by that? You have to find ways that you can interrupt or disrupt or delay the enemy team. So for example, let's say they have a Venom and Venom dives on the backline, right? And you're playing Mantis. Mantis can put that Venom to sleep. That gives your team time to peel. Hopefully, maybe you have a Wolverine. Wolverine can grab the Venom. You could damage boost the Wolverine. And then if that Venom doesn't die, when he tries to swing away, you can poke him, right? Because you're on Mantis and she has powerful poke abilities. I think that Mantis is going to be better suited against brawly tanks that have dive capabilities. When Venom comes in and he dives, his combo is that he grabs everyone around him. If you put him to sleep, you completely break that combo. Same thing with the Hulk. The Hulk jumps back. Maybe he starts juggling someone. You could break that combo. So we're finding ways to break people's combos, to interrupt or delay them and make their job hard to do. Luna is going to be more viable against brawl tanks that play on the front line. So this is the Thing, Devil Dinosaur, even Thor. And the reason why I say this is because, let's say for instance, again, you have a Venom that dives into the back line. Yes, Luna can freeze him and she could damage boost herself, but now you're in a position to where you can't really heal your team. Luna's going to be very good against someone who's playing on the front line, because you can very easily swap between healing your tank and poking their tank. So I know that Rocket is dominating season 8.5 right now, and that's really due to him comboing his ult with Starlord, Cyclops, and sometimes even the Punisher, right? So I really want to show you guys some counters to these team ups. And in this clip here, we have Loki countering Cyclops' ult. So Loki works very well against Cyclops, and the reason why is because Cyclops' beam gets weaker for each person that it passes through, right? It's not like Moon Knight where his shots ricochet back and forth between enemies for the same amount of consistent damage. The beam passes through everybody one time, but every person that it passes through, it gets weaker and weaker. So Loki is a great counter to Cyclops because you're taking value away from one of his abilities, right? And he also counters the ult. And even with a rocket team up, the lamps absorb all the damage. This combo here, if they have the Punisher, you know, you could have a Magneto, right? You have Magneto ults. They're doing a rocket combo ult. Mag ults, he absorbs their bullets. If they have a Starlord, then you can have an Emma, right? And Emma can ult to stop the Starlord, and then Deadpool can pop his ult onto the Starlord. Starlord's dead, right? I do think that strat pool is definitely something that the devs added into the game because there really is no other way to defeat such an offensive combo. So before I close out the video, I want to talk about the ban phase, and I want to talk about a very useful tool that I used when I first started playing Marvel Rivals. So in the ban phase, the top 3 characters that I think should be banned are Rocket, Penny, and Moon Knight. And the reason why is because Rocket has too many other heroes that he can combo his ult with. Cyclops, Punisher, Starlord. And if he combos that ult with any of those 3 characters, they're pretty much going to kill you through all of your support ults. So you can really disable that by just getting rid of Rocket. Plus, Rocket also has the BRB. So if you get a pick, it really doesn't matter because Rocket can bring that person back. So Rocket has to go. Penny has to go. The reason why is because just like you guys saw earlier in the video, you know, they got off a dive. They went Hawkeye, they went the Punisher, I believe they went Starlord, right? If the enemy team decides to enable that Penny and create a super Penny comp with Punisher and Storm and Ultron, that is a very difficult comp to beat. Your entire team is going to have to change who they're playing, right? They're gonna maybe have to go Angela and Hulk, and you might need to have an Ultron of your own. There's a lot of different things that need to happen, and if you're solo queuing, it's probably not gonna happen, right? And it's just a really, really difficult composition to go up against, right? So Penny has to go. The reason why I choose Moon Knight is if they have a Namor, you should always be playing Loki against Namor, right? Always. But Moon Knight counters Loki. So if they go Namor Moon Knight, or if they go Cyclops and Moon Knight, they're kind of forcing you to play Loki, but you kind of can't play Loki because of the Moon Knight. It's also very, very hard to deal with. You know, your composition is going to have to change a lot because you're going to have to find ways to take value away from Moon Knight and Cyclops's abilities and kit. What does Moon Knight want? He wants everybody to be grouped up. Basically want to create a situation where players are spread out, right? So you might need a flyer, a diver, someone playing on main. You're going to need to create a very kind of diverse composition, but you have to be careful because they have the Namor and you have a diver, right? So it's just another difficult composition. Obviously, if you're in a match and you see them ban something like a White Fox, that is a very clear sign that they're going to dive you. So Daredevil or Magic should be your ban for sure, 100%. The next video I'll make is going to be about compositions. How do you defeat something like a Thing and a Hulk and a Punisher and a Jean Grey, right? I think that's a very difficult type of composition. Not those specific characters, but when you have 2 very aggressive tanks and then you have the DPS sitting in the back line or in the mid line, that could be a very difficult composition to go up against. So I will be doing a composition guide next. Be on the lookout for that. But let's get into this website that I mentioned earlier. This is a tool that I used when I first started playing Marvel Rivals. So I started out on Rocket, and then I felt like, you know, I wanted to be able to do more for my team. So then I picked up Cloak and Dagger, and immediately I started ranking up, right? But then I reached a point to where it was like, I couldn't do anything, right? And so I wanted to see, okay, well, what are they doing in the higher ranks? What heroes are being played in the higher ranks? What's going on, right? So I went to a website like this, and at that time, Loki was one of the top strategists in the game, and I immediately started practicing with Loki, picking up Loki, and then I started ranking up and climbing, right? So even now, here in season 8.5, you can see who the top three strategists are. That would be Rocket, Mantis, and Loki. If you're trying to make it to Grandmaster, you need to pick up Loki. Loki is going to cut through this Cyclops and Starlord, Punisher type of team up stuff. You know, make sure you ban the Rocket, make sure you ban the Penny. They have the highest win rates in the entire game. Okay. So this was a great tool. You know, you can see White Fox and Luna Snow and Jeff are down here, Invisible Woman are down here. And the big thing I want to say is that, you know, this is a very poke heavy meta, right? So you're going to need a strategist like Loki. Now, any of these strategists are very viable against the right composition, but skill is not like how good your aim is, right? Skill is having the knowledge or the understanding of which strategist is needed and your ability to swap to play that style of character. That is skill.